Want me to whistle? Leo's gonna whistle. Hi again, everyone. New faces, a few new faces. Nice to see you and have you here. We've had a great morning so far. Lots of booths to look at out in the narthex, and now we're going to move into our next speaker, our second speaker of the day. This is Tara Hengst from Chartwell, and Tara's like we've become good friends. Tara and I, and has been a friend of St. Thomas for years and years and years. And Chartwell is also providing us with lunch at noon-ish. Yes. So warm welcome to Tara. Thanks for being here, Tara.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tracy, Rev Tracy, and thank you to all of you who came out today. It truly is a privilege to have the opportunity to be in front of you, to speak about something that's so passionate to me, and really providing valuable information and resources is what I'm hoping that we're able to do today. So as Rev Tracy said, my name is Tara Hengst, and I'm a certified professional consultant on aging. I also hold an undergraduate degree from the University of Mount Royal. I have a postgraduate diploma in human resource management, and I'm a learning and development specialist. And I am currently in process to receive my certification as a gerontologist. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can so that I can truly provide the best information possible and most accurate. So a little bit about why I do what I do. So I have a wonderful mother who is the strongest, most independent, most active person I've ever known in my life. She found herself widowed at age 67. And my father, unfortunately, passed away in Arizona where they were wintering. So that was a bit of an interesting time for my mom. But my mom, being incredibly strong, decided, you know what, nothing's going to hold me down. I'm going to keep going. And she turned around after the funeral a few weeks later, and she went back to Arizona. And she kept going to Arizona and driving all those back roads all up until she turned 84. So she was driving, she was living on her own, she was participating in every event, every activity. She was, my goodness, pickleball. I don't even know what she was all involved in. Anytime I tried to call her, she said, I don't have time to talk to you right now, I'm busy. And so she was one of the most strongest active people I know. When she came home that spring, she had a medical event, and she doesn't mind me sharing. She, unfortunately, we had no warning signs, nothing. She had a pulmonary embolism, which unfortunately weakened her heart, so she ended up with some really difficult medical challenges. So why do I do what I do? As many resources as I have, I was not prepared for what the doctors had told me. When my mom was in hospital, they said she may not come out. That was week 1. Week 2, they said, well, we think, you know, she could probably leave the hospital. She's strengthened, but she could never return home. And so we started preparing for that. Week 3 was a whole other story. They said, oh, no, we feel confident she can go home, but we really want you to get some resources in place, like Alberta Health Services home care, and you may need some private home care. So we really want you to look at that. And she definitely needs to retrofit her home because it's no longer a safe environment, because now she had mobility challenges, which she never had before. And then by week 4, they came in on a Friday morning, and without any warning, they discharged her. Nobody was in the hospital. Nobody was present. And unfortunately, she, because of everything she had been through, my sister and I were making her decisions. The one thing with all my resources, we had a lot of information, but what we didn't have for my mom is a plan. So we truly did not know how she wanted everything to happen. We did not know to the extent of home care she wanted. We did not know how much retrofitting she wanted to do in her home, and we didn't know how much money she wanted to spend because there was no plan in place. So I created this presentation in hopes that we can help facilitate those conversations and start planning our senior living journey. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick introduction, because a lot of folks have heard about who Chartwell is, but I'll just introduce them in case you haven't heard. Chartwell Retirement Residences is the largest owner-operator of retirement living options in Canada, with over 160 properties nationwide. We have all levels of living and all levels of care, with the exception of long-term care. We just recently sold all of our long-term care properties to aged care. But we have everything from independent up to independent supportive, assisted, memory living, and memory care. Next slide, please. So quite often people will ask me, I don't feel like I'm ready to start planning. How do I know if I'm ready? And for me, it's more of, why do people make the choices they make? Readiness is as individual as every single person sitting here. You've all come from your own journey. You've all come from your own lifestyle. So your readiness will be different than the person sitting next to you, even if you're a spouse, right? So the reasons why people come to us and ask for resources is typically because of things like healthcare crisis. Or some people come to us, in my mom's case, was a pretty severe healthcare crisis. Some people will maybe have received a diagnosis. Maybe you've received a diagnosis of osteoarthritis, let's just say, and you know that you're going to be faced with some mobility challenges in the future. So these are why people start their planning process. You may not be ready today, but you want to know what that'll look like in the future should you ever need to access those resources. Some folks are like my mom's situation. You're a widow or a widower, and maybe you no longer want to buy groceries for one person and prepare meals for one person. This is why you start having these conversations. Maybe it's a family member who's brought this to your attention. Maybe there's a different diagnosis. Maybe somebody's been diagnosed with Parkinson's and you know that your challenges are going to change. So these are all reasons why people come to us. What we saw coming out of COVID is a lot of people came to us because of isolation and loneliness. A lot of folks just felt the loneliness of being separated from their communities, whether it was your church community, a senior social group, but this was one of the main reasons why people started asking the questions. Next slide, please. Okay, I love this conversation. This one I truly love. So there are options. It's not just a run and a race to move into a retirement living community. Although we have beautiful properties, so many folks want to stay in their home. And there are options to stay and age in your home safely. And so those were some of the options I wanted to bring forward. So private home care and Alberta Health Services home care. So maybe some of you have already looked up home care because you need access to the resources. Alberta Health Services, we are so thrilled that the gal is here from Alberta Health Services because she can truly answer your questions. Accessing home care through Alberta Health Services is very simple. You can go online to their webpage and you can call the numbers that are there. They typically will, based on assessment, provide up to 30 hours of scheduled care for a person to access home care in their homes. The most common home care is either bath assist or medication assist, not management typically, but just a watch to keep an eye on things. Where they back away from items is more your standalone services. So maybe you just need support making toast in the morning. Those are services they like to bundle because if they're sending someone out, and again, based on assessment, they will bundle some of those services together. Maybe you have compression stockings, you have medication watch, and then you have some support with meals. So that's Alberta Health Services, and it's beautiful. I always tell everybody, Alberta is the best place to be a senior because we have access to so many wonderful resources that are government funded. And then there's private home care. So when my mom was released from the hospital, One of the items that the doctor had mentioned is that we would need private care. Typically, we researched 3 or 4 of the folks that were currently working within our Chartwell properties, and we found that the resources were varied. We found that the costs were varied and the minimums were varied. I know there's a lovely group out here that's talking about home care. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. What does your home care prices start at? Because a person can have home care to supplement Alberta Health Services. Maybe you want companion. Maybe you just want someone to come and have meals with you. Or maybe it's something more involved. Maybe you want someone to go to your medical appointments with you and be that second set of ears and second set of eyes. It's always fantastic, and never be ashamed to access those resources. Private home care can run anywhere from $30 an hour all the way up to $60 or $70 an hour if you need nursing care. So have those questions, always research, ask your friends, do Google searches, see who's out there, and then get to know what you want to do, what you want to set up in supplement to Alberta Health Services. Okay, retrofitting your home. I put this one in here because I have done a lot of home visits. And I remember I was visiting this beautiful lady one time, and she was serving me tea. And and we're all gonna do this, we're all gonna shrink. It's just natural. Most of us have already started. I know I've started. We're gonna shrink a little bit. And she was taking and grabbing the cups out of her cupboard. And she says, I'm having difficulty reaching my cups. And I said, so how do you manage that? She went to her pantry, she pulled out 4 cans of chicken noodle soup, Campbell's chicken noodle soup. She bunched them together and she stepped on those cans of chicken noodle soup. So as much as I love the creativity, we want you to be safe in your own home. Another situation is when I was doing a home visit, some folks were telling me they had mobility challenges. They were well in their late 80s, and they both had walkers. And I said, so may I ask you, what do you do when you have this many stairs and you have to get laundry up and down the stairs? She goes, oh, look what we can do. So her husband was on the top floor, she was down. He threw down a rope, she tied it to the laundry basket, and they would pulley it up to the 2nd floor. Well, I was standing there, and this laundry basket came crashing down because it had slipped out of the knot that she had made. And I said, are you okay? Like, what do we do in this case? She goes, oh, then we just put it on our walker and move it up our stairs. We hold on to the rail with one hand. I said, you know what? You really need to look at retrofitting your home. There is no badge of honor in living at risk in your own home, but there's a safe way to do it. So we highly recommend looking for someone with this seal. This is your senior home safety specialist. There are a ton of people in Facebook Marketplace that are handymen. I've seen some of those results as well, where people don't have the proper weighting on their grab bars in their showers. And unfortunately, those can be a mishap and a fall. So we want you to live safe in your own home, because it's beautiful if you can stay for a while and enjoy what you've built. But please have a look for someone who is an age-safe senior home safety specialist. They will come out and do a proper assessment. You can let them know to what degree you want to retrofit your home, and they will make sure you have it well within your budget. So that's one of those. Please feel free to take a picture of that. If you're hoping to have that, make sure you're accessing the right resource. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so what lifestyle options are available in retirement living? So first of all, retrofitting your home and accessing home care is actually considered retirement living. But what we represent here is the different levels of living and levels of care associated with what you would consider retirement living residence. So independent living is for anyone who is, as it says, independent. Maybe you want to still cook some of your own meals. Maybe you just want to have, the odd meal in a congregate setting in a dining room because of your situation, loneliness, isolation. Maybe you like the idea of having someone come in once a week and clean your suite. Maybe you don't. Maybe you truly just want to be in a place where you feel safe, secure, and that you feel that you have the social connections or access to activities as you want them. This is typically aligned, so independent living typically aligns with what an assessment would look like of SL 1, 2, and some parts of 3. That SL is the assessment that'll come through Alberta Health Services, and that's supportive living. And the 1, 2, and some of 3 really depends on how much assistance a person needs. So, for instance, if you were assessed as an SL1, chances are you're really not accessing much through home care, but maybe you are. Maybe you're just having a bath assist once a week. And so anyone who's assessed with the SL2, maybe you're accessing support with compression stockings, bath assist, and maybe some medication watch. Not necessarily management, but they're just coming in and making sure you've got a blister pack that, is full, and maybe a person, they're coming in just to sort of keep an eye on that. Now, independent supportive living really is bundled in with independent living. So independent supportive living is having access to resources within your retirement residence so that you can take advantage of those resources as you need them. So you are fully in control. Assisted living, well, I think this is what we've all sort of termed as our nursing home living. We've changed the name of it because nursing home, it really was generational, and assisted living is different. Nursing home, person would go and live and have nursing care. Assisted living residences have so much more in them. Now they have programs, now they have outings, now they have activities and access to all sorts of arts and culture and entertainment that comes in. Assisted living is what we typically consider that SL4. So that's, again, supportive living 4, or DSL is if it's designated through our Alberta Health Services. And this is typically when we have a dementia. So SL4D is when someone may need more assistance if they're in a later stage of dementia or Alzheimer's. And then we have memory living and memory care. So these are 2 separate types of living. Memory care is when a person is in a secured, maybe a secured space because they may be at risk for wandering. And our memory living is a Chartwell program. So a person, they still could have some issues with wandering, but we have access to our entire building. And we have something called Wander Guard, where a person wears like a watch or a bracelet, and it just alerts our staff when someone is maybe wanting to leave the building. And for safety reasons, we want to ensure that they have the support that they need. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the difference between retirement living, which is all those living that we talked about, levels of living, your retrofitting your home, and your access of home care. And we're looking at the differences between retirement living and long-term care. Because so many people will ask me, if I'm in hospital, how do I know what assessment I'm going to get? And typically, when you're in hospital, you will be assigned a case manager, transition coordinator, a social worker, and they will come in and talk to you about that next level. This is where we were at with my mom. We were being spoken to by all these folks. Now, originally, and my poor sister and I really say it this way, it's really my poor sister, because I understood most of these definitions. Week 1, my mom needed long-term care. Well, week 1, we didn't think she was coming out. Week 2 was long-term care. Week 3 was independent living. So it all changed. But the 3 main differences between the 2 is, number 1, the security. So in independent living or retirement living, a person can come and go as they please. There is no, the security is at the door is locked, you have a key, you sign in and out for fire safety purposes. In long-term care, a person is able to leave when they have the support of either a family member or a medical professional or someone who's going to take responsibility for that person because they may need care needs. The next one is cost. So there is a funded option when a person has a diagnosis of, an assessment of long-term care. The government will fund the care portion, and the person is still required to cover the accommodation. Anywhere from $2,000 to $2,200, roughly, it changes every July. And then the third one is the care. When we're looking at long-term care, we're looking at 24-hour nurses and doctors and support staff that come in and check on that person. So those are your three main differences. Now, we've had a lot of information. I want to just stop if there's any questions. Does anybody have any questions while we're here on these before we move forward? No? Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. This brings us to funded and private pay. So there are funded options available for retirement living if a person has had an assessment of that SL4 that we spoke about, where they've exceeded their number of scheduled care hours and may need more care. That is available through an assisted living program or higher, so assisted living or long-term care. You can apply for funded options, and typically, if a person is in hospital and they've received one of those assessments, a person is given 72 hours to come up with 3 choices, and then typically it's a wait list from there. So just know that they do give you opportunity to come up and give them some choices that you would like if you need that assisted living or long-term care. And then private pay is basically what it is. So we talked about funded options being in around that $2,000 to $2,200. Private pay for independent living starts at around $2,100, and that typically includes your suite, your housekeeping, and a meal. And then it includes all the activities. And obviously it would go up from there depending on, which property you look at. Do you want more meals, or do you want 3 meals? It's truly up to you. It's almost a la carte. But that is the private versus funded. Next slide, please. Okay. Why do we plan? Well, we know that if we don't have a plan, someone else will make those decisions for us. Many folks say to me, I want to stay independent. I want to be my own decision maker. Having a plan and letting someone know what that plan is ensures that even if you don't have the capacity to make decisions in the moment, your plan will be realized. You still have a voice. Knowing how far you want to take retrofitting your home, knowing at what point that you want to enlist the support of home care, and letting someone know these options. Having a plan of when do you want to move into retirement living. For some of you that you might say, I never want to go into retirement living community. But having a plan in the event that living at home is no longer a safe option for you and that you may be living at risk, that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do for your family. That's the best you can do for yourselves. And that's the best you can do to ensure that you are living your best life the way you want to live it. So how do you start planning? Sorry, next slide. How do you start planning? Well, I always like to go back to work it backwards. So the first thing is, how long do you want to stay in your home? How much money do you want to spend on retrofitting your home? Do you want to put, $30,000, $40,000 into your home to set it up so you can stay for quite some time, hospital bed? It's up to you. This is your life. This is your journey. You get to make these choices. So identifying a budget. What's your budget? having someone, a specialist, come in and tell you what you're actually going to need so that you don't end up with, elevators and stair lifts and all sorts of things that people would love to put in for you. Just having that plan. Know what you want to do. And then call around looking for someone who's part of that home safety specialist. Home care. There's some lovely groups here, and there's a few that we highly recommend. Knowing that if you were discharged from the hospital tomorrow and you need support through the evening, let's say, knowing how much you want to spend on that. Have a plan. Do you want to do home care versus a respite stay at a retirement community? We have lovely folks here that love to talk about their community and their respite stay program. That's really important, is know what your plan is, know what your wishes are. The other thing my mom did not have, and I noticed today a lot of was out on the AHS desk, is your green sleeve. Anybody over the age of 18, if you have not filled out a green sleeve, please have one filled out. And this first portion is filled out by your doctor. But understanding what you want to do. When my mom was in hospital, I actually didn't know if she wanted to be resuscitated or not. And I later on learned I would have said yes, but put the paddles on her chest, do whatever she needs. That information would be in here. She's actually told me later on, she says, I don't want anybody compressing my chest. I don't want that. And I would have never known because we didn't have a plan. We were so ill prepared. We had resources, but no plan. So identify how far you want to take your retrofitting your home. If you're planning on selling your home and moving into a retirement living community, maybe you want to take that into consideration. I would speak with the home safety folks. I would speak with the home care folks. Have 3 choices and write them down. Let someone know. Start touring retirement living properties. Tell them you're not ready yet. You're just here to come visit. You want to see what they're like. A retirement living community is as unique as you are as the individual. As much as I would love for you to come and start at a Chartwell, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are other operators here, and it's truly how you feel when you walk through that front door, and trust your gut. Trust your gut to let it guide you and say, you know what, I feel like this is a wonderful community. But write these wishes down so that someone can know. We actually do a presentation with Wills Estates and Planning, and the lawyer that does that says, we pull up these 3 items, and she says, these are items that should even be included, so that if you're ever not in a position to make your own decisions, someone else knows all your wishes. Okay. I do have a wonderful, I think, is it on the next slide? Let me just check. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Now, I do have a wonderful retirement living planning guide. It talks about budgets. There's a whole bunch of information, and unfortunately, I forgot them along with my orange shirt today, so I do apologize. But if you would like to receive one of these guides, myself, my colleague Laura is here, my colleague Jenna, we'd be more than happy to email you a copy or put one in the mail, or you can stop by and pick one up. We would love to have you at any point. Next slide. Okay, so just to summarize, am I ready? Well, again, it's why would a person start researching? If any of those situations, the healthcare crisis, diagnosis, loneliness, death of a loved one, loss of a spouse, if any of that makes sense to you, then definitely start looking at your options. We talked about home care and retrofitting your home, having a plan, identify 3, make sure they're home safety specialists, levels of living in care. There's a lot of folks here that can answer your questions about what's in their properties. We talked about funded and private care. We did not talk about subsidized. I believe there are folks here that can talk to you about subsidized. If you are below a certain income threshold, there is senior living options available. And then why should you plan your retirement living? And that's the one message I want to keep saying. If you don't have a plan, someone else will make that decision for you. The worst time to make a decision is when you are in crisis. It's almost impossible. And then how do you start planning? There's a lot of folks here with, come visit us. Come sign up for Come Dine With Us experience. I promise you it's not a sales event. It's truly about having an experience in a retirement living community where you can get a feel for what it would be like as life in a retirement living community. So next slide. Brings me to questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Yes, you mentioned sending an email to get your brochure on resources.
Yes.
And do you have a card on your table with the email address that we should use?
Yes, absolutely. Please visit our table and we can exchange information and we can email one of those guides to you. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, you're welcome. Anybody else have any questions? No? That's a fantastic question. So I do know that there are some services, excuse me, out there. There's Access Calgary, which if you haven't already used it, it's very difficult. It's difficult to apply, it's difficult to use, but once you get the hang of it, Access Calgary is truly a valuable resource. There are groups like Driving Miss Daisy, and I think it's called the Pink Car. Yes? Perfect.
And they have volunteers that will accompany person or take a person driving.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And OAMA.
And, oh, I've never heard of that one.
Alberta Motor Association.
Okay.
If you're not sure about your own driving ability, you can say, I want my driving ability assessed. How safe I am. And there is cost, and I've forgotten what it is, but they're very good too.
Perfect. So if you didn't hear that, the question was what driving resources are available for someone who may need support with driving. We talked about Access Calgary, but as mentioned, the Calgary Resource Seniors Resource Center is out there as well, and they have information. And then if you want did I say it wrong? Society, sorry, Calgary Seniors Resource Society. And then also was mentioned that Alberta Motor Association will do a driver's assessment to ensure that you're safe. So beautiful resources. Anybody else? Any other questions?
So you sometimes see the name of a retirement home on vans.
Yes.
So is that just a luck of the draw if your center happens to have a van that will take you to appointments or take you to shopping centers or whatever?
So that's a very good question because a lot of folks want to know if there is services to transport you to appointments, let's say, or to shopping or outings or excursions. So I can't speak for all the retirement living communities. At Chartwell, we have larger buses and we have smaller vans that we do for appointments. I have seen around town a couple of the other organizations that do have retirement living options that do have that as one of their services. And typically, I can only speak from Chartwell, but Chartwell has that all included. So when we're talking about the pricing, that's all included in the pricing. But these gals out here would love to answer those questions for you as well. Yeah. Anybody else? I know I love having my husband warm the car and drive me in the winter. I hate being on the roads in the ice, but I'm not quite ready yet to be in Arizona, so I've still got a little gap here. So I can understand the questions around services. Yeah. I'll just give him anybody else? Anything else? Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for your time today. I just want to put a little plug in. We're going to be serving lunch about noonish. We're going to set up. This lunch was prepared by one of our chefs at our Chartwell Colonel Belcher property. Chef has prepared, I believe, a pulled pork sandwich, so it's a hot meal with some salads, and I'm not sure what he has for dessert, but I know our chefs are all Red Seal chefs. and they're absolutely amazing. So I'm looking forward to lunch, and I hope you are too. We'll be setting up right after this and then serving not long after. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me.